A woman in a black hoodie and oversized sunglasses stopped dead in her tracks on Melrose Avenue. A 9-year-old girl was standing outside a vintage shop holding a portfolio of sketches. The woman stepped closer, looked at the drawings, her breath caught. Those sketches weren't just any designs, they were her costumes from 1974, costumes she'd worn on stage, costumes that had been in Bob Mackey's private studio, and this little girl was about to sell them for next to nothing. Cher took off her sunglasses. "Honey, do you know what you have there?" It was November 3rd, 2015, and Sophie Martinez was 9 years old, small for her age, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and eyes that looked older than they should. She stood on the sidewalk outside Decades Vintage Clothing on Melrose Avenue, clutching a black leather portfolio that was almost as big as she was. Inside the portfolio were her father's sketches, costume designs, elaborate drawings of dresses and headdresses and stage outfits covered in sequins and feathers and impossible detail. Her father, David Martinez, had drawn them by hand in the 1970s when he was an assistant to Bob Mackie, one of the most famous costume designers in entertainment history. Sophie didn't fully understand who Bob Mackie was. She was 9 years old, but she knew her father had been proud of these drawings. He'd kept them in a special flat file in his home studio, wrapped in acid-free tissue paper, preserved like treasures. David Martinez had died of pancreatic cancer 11 months ago. He was 41 years old. Sophie remembered the day he'd shown her the sketches, maybe 6 months before he got sick. She'd been 8 years old, sitting in his studio while he worked on designs for a local theater production. "You see these?" he'd said, pulling out the portfolio carefully. "These are from when I worked for Bob Mackie. I was just an assistant, really young, but I got to help design costumes for Cher. The Cher. These are my original sketches." Sophie had looked at the drawings, elaborate gowns covered in beads and feathers, headdresses that looked like works of art, outfits that seemed too beautiful to be real. "Did she really wear these?" Sophie had asked. "Some of them, yeah, or versions of them. Bob would take my sketches and refine them, make them better. But these are the originals. My work." David had smiled, running his hand over one of the drawings. "These are going to be worth something someday, mija. You keep these safe, okay? These are part of our family's history," Sophie had promised. But that was before her father got sick, before the diagnosis, before the hospitals and the treatments and the medical bills that kept piling up even after he was gone. Sophie's mother, Maria Martinez, was 38 years old and drowning. She worked 2 jobs, mornings at a bakery, evenings cleaning offices, and it still wasn't enough. The medical bills from David's cancer treatment were crushing. They'd had insurance, but it hadn't covered everything. The experimental treatments, the medications, the final weeks in hospice care. Maria owed $87,000 to various hospitals and medical facilities. Her credit was destroyed. She was 3 months behind on rent. The landlord had given her until Friday to come up with $2,400, or they'd be evicted. Sophie understood more than her mother realized. She'd heard the phone calls from bill collectors. She'd seen her mother crying at the kitchen table, surrounded by envelopes marked "Final Notice." She'd watched her mother sell her wedding ring, her jewelry, her car, anything of value, just to keep them afloat. And Sophie had remembered her father's words. These are going to be worth something someday. What if someday was now? Sophie had waited until her mother left for her morning shift at the bakery. She'd pulled the portfolio from where it had been stored in the closet of what used to be her father's studio. The leather was worn but still beautiful, embossed with her father's initials. DM. She'd opened it carefully, the way she'd seen her father do, and looked at the sketches inside. 23 original costume designs, drawn in pencil and colored pencil, some with fabric swatches attached, some with notes in her father's handwriting. Sophie didn't know exactly how much they were worth. She'd tried to Google costume design sketches value, but the results were confusing. Some sold for hundreds of dollars, some sold for thousands. She had no way of knowing which category her father's work fell into, but she knew her mother needed $2,400. And if these sketches were valuable like her father had said, maybe they could help. Sophie had written a note for her mother. Gone to help. Back soon. Love, Sophie. Then she'd taken the bus to Melrose Avenue, to the vintage clothing district where her father used to take her sometimes to look at old costumes and textiles. She remembered a shop called Decades that bought vintage fashion items. The walk from the bus stop to the shop took 15 minutes. The portfolio was heavy, awkward. Sophie's arms ached, but she kept going, driven by a determination that no 9-year-old should have to feel. She'd been standing outside Decades for 10 minutes, working up the courage to go inside, when the woman in the black hoodie stopped. Cher was walking down Melrose Avenue, unnoticed. Hoodie up, oversized sunglasses on, just another person in the city. She was on her way to lunch when she saw a little girl outside Decades Vintage, clutching a large portfolio. The child looked determined and terrified. Cher slowed down. A sketch peeked out from the folder, a costume design. The style felt familiar. She stepped closer. "I'm sorry," the girl said quickly. "I'm just waiting to go in." Cher barely heard her. She was staring at the drawing. She knew it. "Honey," Cher said gently, lowering her sunglasses. "What are you holding?" "They're my dad's," the girl said, tightening her grip. "I'm going to sell them." "Can I see?" After a brief hesitation, the girl set the portfolio on a low wall and opened it. Cher's breath caught. On top was a sketch she recognized instantly, a costume she'd worn in 1974 on the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. Gold, feathers, unforgettable. She remembered Bob Mackie adjusting it backstage. But this wasn't Bob's hand. It was younger, rougher, still talented. "Where did these come from?" Cher asked softly. "My dad drew them," the girl said, her eyes filling with tears. "He worked for Bob Mackie. He was his assistant. He died last year." Cher looked at her, 9 years old, holding a portfolio almost as big as she was. "Why are you selling them?" she asked. Sophie's voice was small. "My mom needs money. We owe a lot from when my dad was sick, and I thought, my dad said these would be worth something someday, so maybe I could sell them and help." Cher felt something break in her chest. "How much do you think these are worth?" Cher asked. Sophie looked down. "I don't know. I was going to ask the store, maybe $200? Cher actually put her hand over her mouth. $200. For original Bob Mackie studio sketches, for pieces of costume design. "Sophie," Cher said, pulling off her sunglasses completely so the little girl could see her face. "Do you know who I am?" Sophie looked at her confused, then recognition slowly dawned. You're Cher." "Yeah, baby. I'm Cher. And these sketches?" She gestured to the portfolio. "These are designs for costumes I wore. Your dad helped create these for me." Sophie's eyes went wide. "And these aren't worth $200, Cher said gently. "These are worth at least $15,000, maybe more to the right collector." Sophie's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the wall. "15,000? At least." Cher sat down next to her. "These are original studio sketches from Bob Mackie's workshop from the 1970s, from one of the most famous periods in costume design history. Collectors would pay a lot for these." Sophie was crying now. "I didn't know. My mom needs help and I thought..." Cher put her arm around Sophie's shoulders. "Listen to me very carefully," Cher said. "You cannot sell these to a vintage shop for $200. That would be a huge mistake. These sketches are your father's legacy. They're proof of his talent, his work, his contribution to something beautiful." "But my mom needs money," Sophie said desperately. "We're going to lose our apartment." Cher was quiet for a moment, then she pulled out her phone. "What's your mom's number?" Sophie recited it through her tears. Cher dialed. It rang 4 times before a woman answered, her voice rushed and stressed. "Hello? Hi, is this Sophie's mom?" "Yes. Who is this? Is Sophie okay?" Sophie's fine. She's right here with me. My name is Cher. I'm someone who knew your husband's work. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, who? This is going to sound crazy, Cher said, but I'm Cher, the singer, and your daughter is standing outside Decades Vintage with a portfolio of costume sketches that belong to your husband. She was about to sell them for $200. I need you to come here right now. I'm at work. I can't just... Yes, you can, Cher said firmly. Tell your boss it's a family emergency, because it is. Your daughter is trying to help you, and she needs you here. We're at Decades on Melrose Avenue. Please come. Maria Martinez arrived 30 minutes later, breathless, still wearing her bakery apron. She ran straight to Sophie and pulled her into a tight hug. Baby, what were you thinking? You can't just leave like that. I just wanted to help, Mama, Sophie cried. You're always sad. I thought if I sold Daddy's drawings... Maria's tears fell as she held her daughter. That's when she noticed the woman standing nearby. Oh my God, Maria whispered. You're really Cher. I am, Cher said softly. And your daughter is incredibly brave. Maria looked confused. I don't understand what's happening. Cher opened the portfolio and showed her the sketches. Your husband worked with Bob Mackie? She asked. Maria nodded. In the 70s. He loved that time. These are original studio designs, Cher said gently. Your husband drew costumes I wore on television. They're museum quality. She paused. And Sophie was about to sell them for $200. Maria covered her mouth. Oh, Sophie, no. They're worth at least $15,000, Cher said softly. But that's not why they matter. They're your husband's legacy. Once they're sold, they're gone. Maria broke down. I know, but we're being evicted on Friday. I need $2,400. I have no other choice. Cher reached into her bag, pulled out a credit card, and placed it in Maria's hand. Use this. I can't accept your money. You're not accepting it, Cher said firmly. I'm giving it. She paused. I wore your husband's work on stage, in front of millions. He helped build moments people still remember. I owe him. Cher pressed the card into her hand. Pay your rent, take care of Sophie, and keep the sketches. One day, she'll need to see what her father created. Maria sobbed, clutching the card. Cher then knelt beside Sophie. Sophie, she said gently. Can I tell you something? Sophie nodded, wiping her tears. Your dad would be proud of you, Cher said gently. Trying to help your mom took real courage, but he'd want you to learn from his work, not give it away. She turned to Maria. One more thing. I'll make some calls. When Sophie's older, if she wants this path, I'll help her get a scholarship. Maria couldn't speak. She just held Sophie tight. Keep the sketches, Cher said. Let her grow up seeing what her father created. Let her know his work mattered. She smiled at Sophie. Maybe one day you'll create something beautiful too, and you'll know you're carrying his legacy. 2 weeks later, Maria received a call from the Costume Designers Guild. Mrs. Martinez, we're putting together an exhibition on Bob Mackie's work from the 1970s. We heard that your late husband, David Martinez, was one of Bob's assistants during that period. We'd love to include some of his original sketches in the exhibition, with full credit to him. Would you be willing to loan them to us? Maria looked at the sketches, now professionally framed and hanging in Sophie's room. Yes, she said. I think my husband would like that. The exhibition opened 6 months later at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising Museum in Los Angeles. David Martinez's name was listed alongside Bob Mackie's, with a description of his contributions to costume design history. Sophie attended the opening with her mother. She stood in front of her father's sketches, now behind glass in a museum, and felt a complicated mix of pride and sadness. Your dad would have loved this, Maria whispered. Sophie nodded, and for the first time since her father died, she felt like maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. 10 years later, in 2025, a young costume designer was making waves at her senior thesis show at Otis College of Art and Design. Her name was Ashley Chen, and she was 18 years old. Ashley had grown up in Los Angeles, the daughter of immigrants who'd worked multiple jobs to give her opportunities they'd never had. Her mother was a seamstress in the garment district. Her father drove for a rideshare company. Neither had gone to college, but they'd scrimped and saved to help Ashley pursue her dream of fashion design. Ashley's thesis collection was called Second Generation, a series of costumes that honored her mother's work as a seamstress while pushing the boundaries of what stage costumes could be. The designs were intricate, bold, theatrical. The show was packed with industry professionals, recruiters from major design houses, and costume designers from film and television studios. And in the front row, wearing oversized sunglasses and a simple black outfit, sat Cher. Ashley had no idea Cher was there. She was backstage, helping models into the final looks, her hands shaking with nerves and excitement. This was it. Years of work, student loans, late nights, her parents' sacrifices, all leading to this moment. When the show ended, the applause was thunderous. Ashley walked out for her bow, overwhelmed, trying not to cry. That's when Cher stood up. The rest of the audience realized who was there, and the applause grew louder. But Cher wasn't performing, she was just clapping, genuinely, tears in her eyes. Backstage, after the chaos had died down, a woman approached Ashley. "Ms. Chen, there's someone who'd like to meet you." Ashley followed her to a small room where Cher was waiting. "Oh my God," Ashley said, frozen in the doorway. "Come in, honey," Cher said with a warm smile. "Your collection was incredible. Thank you. I can't believe you're here." "I come to see new designers," Cher said, "especially ones with real vision. Your work reminded me of someone I knew, an assistant to Bob Mackie, same imagination." She leaned in. "People will tell you your ideas are too big, too expensive. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're just afraid. Don't let fear stop you. The costumes people still talk about, they were once called impossible." Then she added softly, "I saw your mother crying, not because of the sacrifice, but because she saw her own work reflected in yours. You brought her with you. That's what real artists do." Cher stood, handing Ashley a card. "Call my stylist next week. I want you on my team." Ashley's hands trembled. "Say yes," Cher smiled. "Then go hug your mother. She's been waiting." 6 months later, Ashley Chen was designing costumes for Cher's tour. It was her first major professional job out of college, and it was everything she'd dreamed of and more. On opening night, Cher wore one of Ashley's designs, a modern take on the theatrical, elaborate costumes Bob Mackie had made famous. The audience went wild. Backstage after the show, Cher found Ashley. "You did it, kid. You really did it." "I couldn't have done it without you," Ashley said. "You gave me this chance." "I gave you an opportunity," Cher interrupted. "You did the work. Don't ever forget that. Opportunity is nothing without talent and dedication. You earned this." She paused. "But I want to tell you something. 10 years ago, I met a little girl outside a vintage shop. She was trying to sell her father's costume design sketches for $200 to help her mother pay rent. Those sketches were worth $15,000. I stopped her from selling them, helped her family, made sure she could pursue her father's legacy." Ashley listened, not sure where this was going. "That girl's name was Sophie Martinez, and do you know where she is now?" Ashley shook her head. "She's working for Ryan Murphy's costume department, designing for television, following in her father's footsteps, and every time she creates something, she's honoring him." Cher smiled. "I'm telling you this because in this industry, we have a responsibility. When we make it, when we have success, when we have resources, we don't just keep them for ourselves. We pass them forward. We help the next person. We honor the people who came before us, and we lift up the people coming after us." She looked directly at Ashley. "You're going to have success. I can see it. And when you do, remember this moment. Remember that someone gave you a chance, and then give someone else a chance. That's how we keep the art alive. That's how we honor everyone who struggled before us." Ashley felt tears streaming down her face. "I promise," she said. "I promise I will." Today, Ashley Chen is an Emmy-nominated costume designer working in film and television. She makes a point of mentoring young designers, especially those from immigrant families like hers. And Sophie Martinez, now 19 years old and studying costume design at UCLA, has her father's original Bob Mackie sketches framed in her dorm room. She looks at them every day before she starts working on her own designs. Both young women carry forward the same lesson Cher taught them, that success isn't just about your own achievements. It's about protecting legacies, lifting others up, and passing forward the kindness you received. In 2024, Ashley and Sophie met at a Costume Designers Guild event. They discovered their connection to Cher and spent hours comparing stories. "She saved my father's legacy," Sophie said. "She launched my career," Ashley replied. They both smiled. "No," Sophie said, "she taught us how to save our own legacies and how to help others save theirs." If this story moved you, remember, every successful person got help along the way. The question isn't whether you'll receive help, it's what you'll do with it when you do. Will you keep it for yourself, or will you pass it forward? Share this with someone who uses their success to lift others, because that's how we change the world, one act of kindness at a time, rippling forward forever.